The mansion had been silent for 18 long months. No sound, no laughter, nothing but empty rooms and memories that felt heavy on every wall. But on this quiet afternoon, a sound rose through the hall, a soft voice, then a small giggle, then another, like little broken pieces of life trying to come back. Jonathan Reed stopped at the door, his hand shaking as he listened, confused, scared, wondering if he was losing his mind. He followed the sound slowly, each step heavier than the last, until he reached the kitchen, and what he saw inside froze him. His 3 daughters were smiling, moving, talking, and they were doing it with the maid he barely noticed. And in that moment, something inside him cracked open. He did not know it yet, but the next few minutes would either save his family or destroy everything left of it. Jonathan stood there for a long moment, too afraid to breathe, as if one small sound from him would break what he was seeing. He felt something warm rise in his chest, something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. It scared him, because hope was dangerous. Hope was something he had stopped trusting. He had given up months ago. And now this strange moment felt unreal, like a dream that did not belong to him. The kitchen was bright, sunlight touching the walls, and there in the center were his 3 little girls. Emma sat on the counter, Chloe held a small wooden spoon like it was a microphone, and Faith was wrapped around the maid's neck as the woman gently turned in a soft circle. They were smiling, real smiles, small but bright, and their lips were moving. They were making tiny sounds that formed little broken words, the kind of words Jonathan had begged to hear for more than a year. His throat tightened. He tried to step forward, but something inside him pulled him back. He felt like a stranger in his own home, watching something he had not been part of, something he had not helped build. He felt lost, almost useless, as if the world had kept moving while he stayed stuck in the same painful moment. He stood quietly in the doorway, watching the maid, Tara Williams, move around the children with a soft smile. She held them gently, with the kind of care that came from the heart. She did not rush them, she did not force anything, she simply let them be children. Jonathan had not seen his girls act like children since the day their mother died. Seeing it now filled him with mixed feelings: relief, confusion, fear, and something sharp that cut deep inside him. He took one small step inside, but Faith noticed him first. Her tiny body froze, her fingers holding the maid's shirt tightly. The other 2 turned slowly, their smiles fading, as if they were not sure if they were allowed to be happy. Jonathan felt the room tighten. The air changed. The girls stared at him like they were looking at a ghost. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Tara gently lowered Faith to the floor. Her eyes met Jonathan's. She folded her hands softly in front of her, and stepped back from the children. She looked calm, but there was a quiet strength in her face, a kind of strength people build after they have survived pain. Jonathan did not know her story. He never asked. He never cared enough to ask. He had treated her like every other worker in the house, someone who came, cleaned, and left. He had no idea she was the reason his daughters were standing again. The girls held each other's hands the same way they always did when they felt scared. Jonathan saw the fear in their eyes, the fear of losing something, the fear of going back to silence. His chest felt tight. He wanted to comfort them, but he did not know how. He had forgotten how to reach his own children. Tara bent down to the girls, her voice calm. She whispered something soft, something only they could hear, and slowly they relaxed. Emma took a small step toward Jonathan, then stopped. Chloe squeezed her sister's hand. Faith looked up at Tara like she needed permission to breathe. Jonathan swallowed hard. He realized he had not earned their trust. He realized they were not running to him. They were waiting to see how he would react. The moment broke something inside him. He walked closer, his feet unsteady. "I heard you laughing," he said, his voice shaking. "I have not heard that sound in so long." The girls lowered their heads. They did not speak. They looked at Tara again, searching for safety. Jonathan saw it clearly. They trusted the maid more than they trusted him. Jealousy rose in him, sharp and bitter. It shocked him. He did not want to feel it, but he did. He felt replaced, like someone had taken his place in his own family. He stepped back, trying to hide the feeling, but it was too late. It was already spreading inside him. He looked at Tara again. She held her hands together, waiting, not saying a word. Her calm presence made him feel small, like she knew something he did not know. He felt ashamed, and shame often turns into anger. Jonathan's voice changed. "Why are they like this with you?" he asked quietly. "How did this happen?" Tara opened her mouth to speak, but she hesitated. She looked at the children first, as if she did not want to scare them. Jonathan saw it. The way she protected them. The way she put their feelings first. Something twisted inside him again. He raised his voice without meaning to. "Did you do something to them?" he asked. "Did you force them to act like this?" The girls stepped back, fear rising again. Tara's eyes widened in shock. Not because of fear, but because she could not believe what she was hearing. "Sir," she said softly, "I would never hurt your children." Her voice was steady, but her heart was shaking. Jonathan felt the room grow colder. His pain, his jealousy, his confusion, all pushed him forward. He pointed at the door. "Get out," he said. "Leave my house now." The girls gasped softly, their little bodies shaking. Tara looked at them first, her eyes full of pain. Then she turned to Jonathan. She nodded slowly, her dignity untouched. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "I will leave." And with that one sentence, the small bit of light that had returned to the house began to fade again. The girls watched her walk away, their little faces full of fear, and Jonathan did not understand yet that he had just broken the only healing they had left. Tara walked out of the kitchen slowly, her steps quiet, her hands shaking even though she tried to hide it. She did not want the children to see her fear. She did not want them to feel guilty. She did not want them to think they had caused this. She had seen hurt before. She had lived through loss. She knew this kind of moment could damage a child's heart. So she kept her back straight. She kept her face calm, and she whispered one last soft word to the girls as she walked past them. "It is all right," she said. "Be strong." But it was not all right. The moment she left the room, the mansion felt colder. The kitchen, which had been full of warm light and small smiles, became heavy and strange. The triplets stood in the center of it, holding each other's hands tightly. They looked at the doorway Tara had walked through, waiting, hoping she would come back, but she was gone. Jonathan stood frozen near the counter. He had not moved since he told Tara to get out. His chest felt tight. His mind felt cloudy. He knew he had reacted too quickly, but something inside him had taken over, something he did not understand. For months, he had been drowning in guilt, grief, and fear, and when he finally saw his daughters laughing again, he did not feel the joy he expected. He felt replaced. He felt left out of his own children's lives. He felt like a stranger in his own home. The triplets stayed silent. Emma's small fingers trembled. Chloe hid her face in Faith's shoulder. Faith looked at their father with wet eyes, but she did not speak. None of them spoke. Jonathan reached out slowly toward them, but they stepped back. The space between them grew wider, like a wall rising again, the same wall that had separated them since their mother died. Jonathan swallowed hard. "Girls," he whispered, "I did not mean to scare you." But the fear was already in their eyes. They were not afraid of him hurting them. They were afraid of losing someone else they loved. Tara had become their safe place, their soft voice, their comfort, their gentle light. Watching her walk away felt like the ground under their feet had opened again. Jonathan watched their faces, and something inside him broke. He had fired the one person who helped his children feel alive again. He had acted in fear, not in love. He had let his own pain speak for him. He knew it, but he did not know how to fix it. Mrs. Turner, The longtime housekeeper walked into the kitchen with a tray of folded napkins. When she saw the triplets' faces, she stopped. Her eyes moved from them to Jonathan, then to the empty doorway, and she understood at once. Her voice trembled. "Where is Tara?" she asked softly. Jonathan did not answer, but his silence spoke enough. Mrs. Turner's mouth opened slightly, shock filling her face. "You fired her," she whispered, not a question, but a painful truth. Jonathan looked down. Shame washed over him like cold water. He felt smaller with every second. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I did not know." Mrs. Turner placed the napkins on the counter and walked toward the girls, kneeling beside them. She held their hands gently. "It is all right," she whispered. "I am here." But her voice shook. She knew she could not comfort them the way Tara could. She knew they would not laugh again, not tonight, maybe not for weeks. The girls clung to each other. Chloe pressed her face into Emma's shoulder, trying not to cry. Faith looked up at Mrs. Turner with a question that hurt. "She is coming back," Faith whispered, her voice thin and weak. "Right." The question cut Jonathan deeper than any knife. His knees felt weak. He wanted to say yes, but he did not want to lie. He had pushed Tara away. He had broken something sacred. The girls waited for an answer, small tears gathering in their eyes. Mrs. Turner looked at Jonathan, urging him to speak. He stared at the floor. His voice barely came out. "I do not know," he said. The girls' faces fell. Their small bodies shook. Chloe let out a tiny sound, a sound that was not a word, a sound that came from fear. Emma held Faith tighter. Faith pressed her hands to her chest, like she was trying to hold her heart together. It did not take long. Within minutes, silence returned to the house. A heavy, painful silence, the same silence that had lived there since their mother's death. The girls refused to talk. They refused to move. They refused to look at their father. They sat on the kitchen floor and held each other like they were scared the world would take another person from them. Jonathan watched them collapse back into their old silence, and guilt hit him so hard he felt like he could not breathe. He sat down slowly on the nearby chair, his hands covering his face. He could hear the small sounds the girls were trying to hold in, small sobs, small breaths, small broken pieces of their hearts falling apart again. Mrs. Turner placed her hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "Sir," she said softly, "you need to listen to me. Tara did something for your daughters that no doctor could do. You think this was a small matter, but it was not. She brought them back, little by little, for 6 long weeks. They trusted her. They spoke to her. They laughed with her. They were healing." Jonathan lifted his head slowly, his eyes red, his face pale. 6 weeks, he whispered. "They have been talking for 6 weeks. His voice cracked. He had been gone so often. He had missed the miracle that was happening in his own house. He had missed the signs, the progress, the small moments. He had missed everything. Mrs. Turner nodded. "Yes, sir," she said. They talked to her. They drew pictures for her. They followed her around like she was the only safe place left in their world. Her voice broke. "They came back to life because of Tara." Jonathan pressed his hand to his mouth. The truth hit him like a heavy wave. He realized how blind he had been, how selfish his reaction had been. Instead of thanking the woman who healed his daughters, he had attacked her. Instead of welcoming the miracle, he had destroyed it. He stood up slowly. "I need to find her," he whispered. "I need to make this right." But his voice carried fear. What if she refused? What if she never came back? What if the girls never trusted him again? Mrs. Turner looked at him with sad eyes. "You must hurry," she said, "because the girls cannot handle losing her." Jonathan wiped his tears with shaking hands. He walked out of the kitchen, each step heavy, each breath painful. Behind him, his daughters sat on the cold floor, holding each other tightly, their small voices gone again, their tiny hearts broken for the second time. And Jonathan realized the truth that he had avoided for 18 months. This was not Tara's failure. This was his. Jonathan didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his study. The lights dim, the same study where he used to read to his girls before everything fell apart. His hands trembled as he held a small drawing Emma had once made, a picture of their family before the accident. Laura was smiling. The triplets were holding hands, and he was standing tall behind them, looking proud. Now, the drawing felt like a lie. The house was quiet again. That dangerous kind of quiet. The girls had refused to eat dinner. They wouldn't speak to him, not even with their eyes. They stayed in their room, curled up together, their backs turned to the door. He had done this. He had brought them back to silence. Jonathan leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, his face in his hands. "God," he whispered, "what have I done?" The next morning, he packed a bag and told Mrs. Turner to hold everything down at the house. He didn't know exactly where Tara had gone, but he remembered she was from Atlanta. He had never asked details before, and now he hated himself for not caring enough to know. He flew to Georgia within hours. From the airport, he rented a car and started asking questions, following the little bits of information Mrs. Turner had given him. Tara once mentioned raising her nephew. She had family in Southside. That was where he started. The streets of Atlanta looked nothing like Coral Springs. No palm trees, no glass towers, just rows of worn buildings and narrow streets filled with faces that didn't know his name. Jonathan asked around. At a small daycare center, a woman recognized the photo he held in his phone. She gave him an address. "She ain't here now," the woman said, "but try Decatur. That's her sister's place." He drove to Decatur with hope clinging to him like sweat. At the small one-story house, he knocked, heart pounding, unsure of what he'd say. The door opened halfway. A teenage boy looked up at him with guarded eyes. "I'm looking for Tara," Jonathan said gently. "Please, I need to speak to her." The boy didn't answer. A moment later, a woman stepped behind him, older, worn out, but strong. "You're the man who fired her," she said flatly. Jonathan nodded, shame all over his face. "Yes," he whispered, "and I came to apologize. I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting my daughters, but I ended up hurting the only person who helped them." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Do you know how that felt for her? You embarrassed her in front of those girls. You made her feel like she did something wrong for simply loving children that were not hers. She cried all night. She told me she was done." Jonathan's throat tightened. "I don't want her back as a maid," he said, his voice low. "I want her back because my daughters need her, because she saved them when I couldn't. I need to make this right." The woman crossed her arms. "She's not here, and even if she was, words won't fix what you broke." Jonathan reached into his bag and pulled out a small box. Inside were folded papers, colored with crayon, smudged with little fingerprints, drawings from the triplets, pictures of Miss Tara with big hearts, stick figures with smiles, and one page that simply said, "Come back." "I didn't come to use money," he said, placing the box down. "I came with this." The woman stared at the drawings, then picked one up gently. Her face softened. "I'll tell her you came," she said, then closed the door. Jonathan sat in his car for hours that night, parked outside a grocery store, unsure of what to do next. He had been rich for so long, he forgot how it felt to be helpless. He forgot that some things could not be bought or controlled. His eyes stayed on the box beside him, full of the only proof he had that love had once lived in his house. He returned to Miami the next day, tired and unsure. The girls didn't run to him, they didn't smile, they barely looked up, but something inside him had changed. He sat with them in the living room, even though they didn't talk. He ate breakfast beside them, even though they didn't touch their food. He read books out loud again, even when they covered their ears. He told them stories about their mother, and he cried in front of them, something he had never done before. He apologized. Every single day, he said, "I'm sorry," over and over, not expecting answers, just needing them to hear it. Mrs. Turner watched silently. She didn't say much, but she noticed the change. Jonathan no longer left for business trips. He no longer hid in his office. He was there, every morning, every night. One evening, he passed by their bedroom and heard whispering. The triplets were under the blanket, talking to each other. "She won't come back," Emma whispered. "She will," Chloe said softly. "She said she needed time," Faith added. "Maybe she's waiting for him to mean it." Jonathan stood outside their door, frozen. He covered his mouth as tears fell quietly down his face. He realized something painful. His daughters didn't believe him, because he had taught them that love disappears, that people leave, that promises break. The next day, he flew back to Atlanta. This time, he didn't go to the house. He went to the small library Tara once visited as a child. A worker there recognized her and gave him another address. It was a small apartment complex, nothing fancy. He waited outside until she came out, carrying a bag of laundry. When Tara saw him, she stopped. Jonathan stepped forward slowly. "I know you don't want to see me," he said gently, "but I need to say this to your face." She said nothing. "I didn't come to beg," he continued. "I came to admit something. I was not the father they needed. I left. I hid. And you did what I couldn't. You brought them back. And instead of saying thank you, I threw you out." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I don't want you to come back as a worker," he said. "I want you to come back as the woman who saved my children and helped me learn how to be a real father. Please teach me. I don't want to fail them again." Tara looked at him for a long time. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "I need 1 week," she said quietly. 1 week to think. If I return, you must show up. Every single day. Not with gifts, not with money, but with your presence. Because those girls don't need another empty promise." Jonathan nodded slowly. "I'll wait," he said, "and I'll be there, whether you return or not." And as she walked back inside, Jonathan stood still, knowing for the first time in his life that love had to be earned, not bought. The week felt longer than any week Jonathan had lived through. Every morning he woke up early and sat in the girls' room, even if they stayed silent. He sat on the floor beside their beds and waited. Sometimes he read softly. Sometimes he just watched them draw. Sometimes he simply cried quietly, hoping they could feel that he was trying. He no longer rushed to work. He canceled meetings, ignored business calls, and stayed home. He cooked them breakfast, even when they pushed the plates away. He stood beside them when they brushed their teeth. He folded their clothes and sat with them during bedtime. He did not try to replace Tara. He only tried to be present. The triplets watched him closely. They did not talk, but they noticed things. They noticed he no longer spent evenings locked in his study. They noticed he no longer left the house before sunrise. They noticed his voice was softer, his eyes sadder, his steps slower. They noticed he was trying, even if he did not know the right words. Sometimes Emma peeked at him through the stairs. Sometimes Chloe followed him with her eyes quietly. Faith often held her sister's hands tighter when he walked into the room, unsure of what to feel. Their little hearts wanted to trust him. But trust had to grow slowly, like a seed waiting for rain. Jonathan knew this. He did not rush them. He let them take their time. One night, after the girls fell asleep holding each other, Jonathan sat in the hallway just outside their door. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. The silence of the house pressed against him. He felt small, like a man standing inside the ruins of a life he once had. He wondered if Tara would ever return. He wondered if the girls would ever forgive him. Mrs. Turner came down the hallway and sat beside him. She looked at him with gentle eyes. "They see you trying," she said softly. "Children know when a heart has changed." Jonathan rubbed his face. "I just want them to feel safe again," he whispered. "I want them to know I am here now." Mrs. Turner nodded. "Keep showing up," she said. "That is all they need from you." The next morning marked the 7th day. Jonathan woke early, his stomach tight. The girls sat at the dining table, quiet, holding small cups of juice. They looked at him, unsure, waiting for something. The air felt heavy with questions. A soft knock came at the front door. Jonathan froze. The girls looked toward the sound. Their fingers tightened around each other's hands. Mrs. Turner walked quickly to the door, her eyes wide. Jonathan stood up slowly, his heart shaking inside his chest. He stepped into the hallway, each step slow, each breath deep. Mrs. Turner opened the door. Tara stood there. Her eyes were gentle, her hair pulled back, her hands holding a small bag. She looked tired, but she looked calm, like someone who had made a decision after thinking deeply. Jonathan stared at her, unable to speak. The girls did not wait. Emma ran first, her tiny feet hitting the floor as she sprinted toward the doorway. Chloe and Faith followed, their small voices breaking into soft cries. They reached Tara and threw their arms around her legs, their little bodies shaking with relief. Tara knelt and hugged them tightly. "I missed you," she whispered, her voice trembling as tears filled her eyes. Jonathan watched from a few steps away, his chest opening with something warm and painful at the same time. He wiped his eyes quietly, knowing this moment was not his to interrupt. After a long moment, Tara stood, holding the girl's hands. She looked at Jonathan. "I came back," she said softly, "because they need me, and because you asked with a real heart, not a proud one." Jonathan nodded slowly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for coming back. I do not deserve it, but thank you." Tara stepped closer. "The girls need you more than they need me," she said gently. "I will help, but you must continue what you started. They must feel their father is here, not far away, not busy, not hidden, but here." Jonathan swallowed hard. "I will not leave again," he said. "I promise." Tara studied his face. She saw pain, but she also saw truth. She nodded once. "Then we begin again," she said. Inside the house, the girls held on to Tara as if they were afraid she might disappear again. She carried Chloe on her hip, held Faith's hand with the other, and Emma clung to her waist. The house felt different already. The tension slowly faded, replaced by a soft warmth. Over the next days, Tara and Jonathan worked side by side. She showed him how to enter the girls' quiet world without forcing anything. She taught him to sit on the floor with them, to let them place toys in his hands, to wait for their small signals. She taught him that healing happens slowly, like soft steps on fragile ground. Jonathan listened. He watched, he learned. One evening, after dinner, Tara sat with the girls near the backyard. The sun was low, coloring the sky orange. Jonathan joined them, sitting in the grass. Tara handed him a small pot of soil. "We will plant sunflowers," she said, "for their mother." Sunflowers turned toward the light. It will remind them that love can grow again. The girls helped press seeds into the soil with their tiny fingers. Jonathan watched them closely. For the first time in many months, he felt something gentle rise inside him. He felt peace. A yellow butterfly flew across the yard and landed near the pot. Emma gasped softly. Chloe smiled. Faith whispered, "Mommy." Tara placed a gentle hand on the girls' backs. "Maybe she is watching," she said. "Maybe she is happy you are healing." Jonathan wiped a tear from his face and nodded. "She would be proud," he whispered, "of all of you." That night, the triplets climbed into Jonathan's lap for the first time since the accident. They didn't speak, but they laid their heads against his chest, breathing softly. Tara watched from across the room, her heart full. This was what she wanted. A father and his children trying again, finding their way back to love. Weeks turned into months. Jonathan kept his promise. He worked less, stayed home more, ate meals with his daughters, read bedtime stories, combed their hair, and hugged them every morning. The girls' quiet voices slowly grew stronger. They laughed more. They drew pictures again. And every picture had Tara and Jonathan together, standing beside them. Tara became part of the family. Not by force, not by title, but by love. The girls called her Aunt Tara. Jonathan respected her deeply, not as a worker, but as someone who helped him become the father he should have been. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Jonathan looked at the triplets running through the yard and whispered, "Thank you, Tara." Tara smiled softly. "Love is the real miracle," she said, "and you finally chose it." And for the first time in a very long time, the house that once felt cold, heavy, and silent was full of life again. Dear viewers, thank you for staying with us until the end. This story reminds us that money cannot heal a broken heart, and silence in a home is not always peace. Sometimes, healing comes from the quiet love of a person who shows up, even when no one is watching. Jonathan had everything that wealth could buy, but he almost lost the only treasure that truly mattered, the love of his daughters. It took the courage of one woman, Tara Williams, to show him that presence is stronger than power, and kindness is stronger than fear. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us where you are watching from, and let this story remind you that love can grow again, even in the darkest moments. Thank you for watching, and stay blessed.